Patrick Cook here. Welcome to session number 7 of our Mastering Mandelbulb 3D formulas. Now, in the previous session, I was talking about and demonstrating this R bailout. And if you look at our screen here, we can see that where we had left off is I had an R bailout of 1. And basically what I've done here is I've put a constriction on the formula execution, and I've said, look, if the value of your equation is outside of the orbit really quick, then don't display the point. And that's why I have a lot of points here that didn't get displayed, and therefore I've lost detail. And I also was showing that the iteration count had nothing to do with making this fractal object any better. So if I go back to the default, which is 16, iteration count of 1, we're going to get the Mandelbulb object fully formed on the screen. And the reason for that is because this particular formula, all right, is simple enough where it only requires one iteration of the formula within an R bailout of, my goodness, I think we were down to 4 before we started losing quality. Maybe the colors, see how the color's different? Let's go 8. Okay. All right. This whole Mandelbulb object can be fully displayed in whatever iteration of the formula with an R bailout, which is pretty low, of 8. If I put an R bailout of 900, I really don't get that whole lot better because the iteration count comes into play now. All right, so it's only going to iterate one time. If in that iteration of that one iteration, if the R bailout, if the points never make the R bailout or never escape the orbit, then it doesn't matter. They're not going to display. Let's experiment here. Let's put an iteration count in of 1,000. Boom. My graphic is the same because it's not going to iterate any more times than it has to, than it needs to fully form the graphic. Iteration count of 1,000, bailout of 1,000. Let's see what happens. I get pretty much the same thing. Obviously, I got less blues here, so there was an impact on the color. But basically, I said iterate up to iterate this one formula up to 1,000 times, or until the R bailout has been achieved. I get more pixels written to the screen because I have a much higher R bailout. All right, so that calculation is the sum, the output of that calculation is not going to exceed the orbit as soon as an R bailout of 2. Okay. So all I've done here is that I've just said write more pixels to the screen. Boom, boom, boom. And basically I told Mandelbulb to write more pixels to the screen than was necessary to create the Mandelbulb object on the screen. I just kind of wasted power. I got a little bit more intense. I got a very, very intense, what shall we say, the compaction of pixels, okay? If I do 1,000 and if I pump that down to 1 as we had done before, I'm getting less pixels on the screen. If I put that back up to 1,000, all right, I get more pixels on the screen, but I get to a point where all I'm really doing is I'm replicating the pixels on top of the pixels on top of the pixels, and I'm not really getting a whole lot better, but I'm putting Mandelbulb3D through more work. The idea is to have our bailout, which I should say, the idea is to have an R bailout and an iteration count which is optimal for getting your object on the screen. If you don't need more iterations, don't ask for it. If you don't need a higher bailout, don't ask for it, because if you have a higher bailout, R bailout, you're going to have the computer spending more time trying to render these Mandelbulbs. Then, if you start getting into multiple assignments of these formulas, you get 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of them up there, and you got your R bailout is really high, then what's the point? You're not getting anything out of it. All right. Now, this R bailout is for the formula sequence. Okay. Excuse me. So now what I've been showing you here is an R bailout, which is down in the sequence area, but of only one formula assigned. All right. All right. So this R bailout is really, there's only one formula that's being run here, so it's not a big deal. Excuse me, I got a little tickle in my throat. Now, just to kind of reiterate that point, if I was to assign 2 formulas, all right, up here, which I'm going to do right now, this R bailout is for the whole set, or the whole formula sequence. Okay? All right, let's do that. I'm going to do a reset and recalculate. And I get what I expected, and here's default R bailout of 16, and okay, and it's okay. So now let's put another formula in there. I don't know what's good. I'm just going to pick anything. Beth 1522. I don't even know what I'm going to get, but let's punch that. Okay, well, all right, you can see the difference, right? Okay, you see the difference. All right. So now here, if I do this, R bailout now applies to the sequence, the set. So this R bailout was actually for both of these. All right. So the R bailout applies to the whole fractal set. If I add another formula, and I don't know what I'm doing here. Let's pick BT2 Pine. Let's punch that. Okay. All right. So what's happening is that when this whole set, these 3 formulas, when that whole set reaches the R bailout, execution of the set stops. Okay. Let's do an R bailout of 100, just to kind of see what our difference is. Not a whole lot of difference. All right, let's put in 1,000 here. Now, what that's telling us is that the Mandelbulb3D software application does not require 1,000 R bailout in order to write those 3 formulas to the screen. Just doesn't need it. If it doesn't need it, don't give it to it. What happens if I put an R bailout of 1 here? Yeah, okay. All right, R bailout of 1 really gives me a poor result. I mean, maybe that's what you want. Maybe you're trying to be creative and that's what you want. Let's put an 8 in there. Yeah, okay. So, okay. Now, in the next session, I want to talk about this min and max iterations, now that I have 3 formulas assigned here. But in this session, I wanted to kind of demonstrate that the R bailout applies to the whole sequence A sequence is all of the formula slots that have a formula assigned to them. That's a sequence. Okay? All right, let's end the session here. When we come back, I'm going to talk about this min and max iterations, and I'll help you understand that. And we'll keep this thing moving forward. Okay? So I'll see you in the next session.